Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Tanya Talkies. And this time we have a very, very special guest. Before I jump onto an introduction, I want to see how is everybody doing. I want to also disclose, if you guys have been seeing the thumbnail, अगर आप लोगों ने अब तक मेरी stories भी अगर Instagram पे देखी हैं, या for in that matter Rouble की भी अगर stories देखी हैं, you all must have guessed that we're having this one extravagant dinner party, huh? But we're having it virtually because a lot of people replied to my stories saying that, hey Tanya, where's your dinner party at? And I want to keep them guessing. So just to let all of you know, today we are here with Amritsar City's most high what's the right word, I might pass it on to you, but he's the most sought after. He's definitely the most respected in his literary reading circles in Amritsar. We are joined by Rouble Tuli, and he's a language guru. He's an expert. He's someone who really used to chat a lot with me. And he was in the position where he used to give a very, very phenomenal introduction to me. But today, I feel like tables have turned. So I'm going to very quickly pass it on to Rouble. I am going to have a very fun chat with him tonight. Looking forward to it. So let's dig into it.
Very happy to be here, Tanya. It is really remarkable. You remember our previous chats as well. And I'm absolutely excited to be here. I just want to double check. Are you there, Tanya? We're doing a dinner party with Tanya Talkies.
Sounds great. And we're very excited to have you here. And I think your profile as an individual, having done so many things, given that, you've started an academy of your own. Education is sounds great, and we're very excited to have you. Should be, I think your profile as sorry, that was sort of.
This is all amazing. I just want to say that this is all amazing because end of the day, that's where people find the entertainment when they see the real bloopers. So
basically, I feel like we are all like consciously or unconsciously preparing a blooper. I think that's exactly what's happening. Yahan pe bhi, and all my previous streams, I'll be honest, I'll take a 2-second detour before I get into this. But so many times when I was just finding my feet, I was just finding my frames for the longest time that, okay, this is the angle that suits me, this is the lighting that suits me. I was so flustered. I used to panic on calls. I used to call Saurabh. I used to be like, oh God, I do not think I can manage tonight's stream. I'm just not going to do this altogether. And then I started easing into it and I realized it's all part of it.
It's all part of it. And exactly, in the courses which I take up, I often tell students, adrenaline rush, this worry, this sense of thrill. Yeah. Once you learn how to tame it, all these little hacks, they really don't matter. Yeah.
Fair enough. On that note, there is a personal favorite question, which I deep dive into later into most of my streams with guests, but I'll ask you this straight away. Are you a fight person or are you a flight person?
Oh.
And what do you understand out of that, right? Because you mentioned.
I think I've really wondered myself because I heard once my sister was driving her car and she somehow hit some vehicle and she fled. And when she fled and she reached back home, she was all sweating and she was telling, oh, by mistake, I hit somebody and, I just couldn't do anything. I just fled. So I began asking her that, what? You should have stopped. You should have helped the people. So, sometimes I really wonder, I've been fortunate. I've never been into such a trouble. What would I do if there is a real mess? Because being a book reader, I think I've been in much of a comfort zone. I've never really encountered those situations where I have to test whether I fly or whether I'm just frightened.
Fair enough. Why I asked this question was because my very first stream, I really wanted to ask the chat and sort of let people know as well that I'm a big fight person. That I've recently been converted into a fight person. And this is where I want to get into tonight's topic as well, like very gradually. Why I say this is because I feel like people who are very good at adapting to challenges, adapting to situations, they are they not only draw from personal experiences like life experiences, but also reading experiences. So have you personally in your life, given that you're like you're an educator. You're someone who's been, guru might not be the word I want to use, but you're like the master Ugwe. You're like the person, you're like like the shining, radiant star in a classroom, and people look up to you, like they emulate you for the values that you instill. Although we talked about wine and bringing wine for tonight's dinner party, letting all the kids and bacha parties know that this is only for show. We are very strongly endorsing a very non-alcoholic, spirit-free gathering. But what I wanted to essentially understand from you is that, have there been times or challenges in your life wherein reading has really calmed you or given you that sense of calm? And what books have those been for you?
Wonderfully. I think what I feel, Tanya, when it comes to reading, it's the ultimate exercise to really bring composure, to really calm your spirits. And
Right.
if you ask me as a parent, more than as a teacher, as a parent, because my children are totally in my control. So we have a 10-15 minute reading time after dinner where the
Right.
entire family sits together and we can open our favorite books and we do read a couple of pages, although I strongly recommend 10 pages at least. To my children, are very little. However, the reason I do it's nothing to do with language, if you ask me. The industry of reading, when you can patiently sit and there's this intellectual labor where you can interact with yourself, the way it calms you, soothes you, and kind of forms up your personality, the gains have been immense. I have always aspired to be somebody who can be, as I would say, the platitude and the quietness of an ocean, a personality, untouched, unwavering, unflinching. If I could reach such a state of growth, I think that's what I'm aiming for. That would be my, what you call, solace someday.
That's so cool. That is actually so cool. It's like a standard that you have set not only for your family, because I absolutely love it when people tell me about these tiny dinner table discussions that they have. Because the meat of conversations, the most finest of things that you can discuss in life come out so well on a dinner table, right? And
And you mentioned dinner table. It reminds me how my parents, they would have after dinner speeches. So my mother, because
okay.
both of my parents,
Yeah.
Amritsar is a small town, and I'm talking about good 20 years ago when Amritsar was coming into the social networking club scenario,
Right.
where a lot of clubs were opening up, and families such as ours who were from the medical and education background, we had a lot to offer. So people would often engulf my parents into certain social meetups, and they would be expected to give speeches. And that delivery of words was not what they had rehearsed for, given their schooling or their own small town upbringing. They never had that exposure of giving, the speeches of extempore. So that's what they wanted their children not to face ever. So I
Right.
remember for a few months, we couldn't continue the tradition, but our family would inspire all the children to stand up at the dinner table and share a few words on random topics of the day, what they felt, what they did,
Right.
right? And I remember the first toasting I learned with a glass, which I
Yeah.
have even passed on to my children, has been, so I raised this toast to my life. And I'm very thankful to, and then I would speak about something that happened in the day.
Right.
So those have been, I would say, very conforming days of my life. They have really shaped how I look at dinner time and what happens post that and during that, for that matter.
It's a very interesting concept. I have never heard of somebody telling me that, yes, we've randomly had people standing up on dinner table discussions and just having speeches. But it is so cool. I feel like I'm going to steal this idea now onwards, because I've usually seen people raising toasts, especially at occasions or weddings, where it's like sort of called for. But I like the randomness of this idea that even if it's an everyday mundane activity, but you're spicing it up just by talking about your day-to-day sort of experience. There was a thing that I had, not a thing, rather, it's a small little game or an activity I'll play with you, like an icebreaker maybe. It's called the Rose and Thorn. And I absolutely love this. Like in workplaces, it's endorsed a lot. It's done very often when you are meeting a person for the first time, especially virtually, it works. So rose essentially being a positive in your life. It could be something recent. It could be a day thing, like something that you've experienced today, or in like the recent few weeks or months. And a thorn is not a negative per se, like not the antithesis, but it's rather like a challenge that you overcome or something that you've been working on. So I'll give examples because I like doing that. And I said this last stream as well with a few guests that I'd had over, that a positive or a rose for me would be that I've really gotten back into physical activity. I was like, I really needed it. I stepped out, I started walking a few extra miles, and my iPhone started rewarding me. Like my iPhone health tracker is just sending me, hey mom, you got to lose those kilos. So it's gone back. The notifications keep beeping. And my challenge, or like a thorn that I wanted to talk about, was me losing touch with a lot of family, even though I'm in Delhi. So today I made it a point. I had a bake day. I went to my bua's place, baked muffins, and then I took it to my dadi's place. So I've got a lot of family based in Delhi. So we just did this entire baking day with Tanya, and I absolutely loved it. So I'm working on it. What would be yours?
So my rose and my thorn, right? That's what I'm supposed to answer? So my rose, I think something which I felt today was that as an educator, I experiment with teaching, with pedagogy every single day. So today I felt, although our government encourages, there should be another, I'm going to touch up a controversial topic here, but that's not what you wanted. You wanted something to come up quick.
No.
So, that's what I'm thinking.
Go on.
I was just thinking that how, government encourages teachers to have an all-inclusive classrooms where even the children with special needs or academic disorders could maybe study in the same curriculum. I personally felt today that that's not possible because it's not only about the syllabus, it's not only about the academic tasks. However, the academic vigor and the intellectual hunger that really varies student to student. So that was my rose, a kind of a discovery I've made it. And for my thorn, I would say I've never been very comfortable at weather talks with people in social parties. So when we, and I come off a background where we do have a lot of social events. I do have to go out and do a lot of parties. So I feel when I'm in total senses, it's very difficult for me to do random talks. I can't ask again and again somebody, so kya chal raha hai, kaise ho?
Aur batao.
And really, aur batao. And then awkward silence when I have to keep standing and staring at somebody or finding something to stare at. I really enjoy parties where there are activities, like you can go and you can enjoy. Even when guests come at our place, we do plan a couple of games to ensure that they feel engaged. And thankfully, our children, they always have a performance to deliver, either a singing or...
Can I cut you for 1 second? Are you one of those parents who's just like, Jao beta, auntie ko juk sunao? Do you do that to your kids, or do they naturally feel like being nice for the party? Plural.
Our kids are so programmed, we have to stop.
I'm so happy.
So my daughter has these pet hamsters, and one of our guests is sitting with me in the drawing room, and all of a sudden she brings her hamsters. She says, "Uncle, see, I've got hamsters." And my friend literally jumped over a sofa, and he was like, and then he said that Rouble ji, मैं कहना तो नहीं चाहता, पर मैं चूहों से बहुत डरता हूँ. So, so the children are unpredictable.
वो nicety उनसे निकल जाती है. He's just like, अरे यार guest को अब बेटी चूही ले आई है, तो I might as well just.
The one thing I'm sure of is the guests go entertained. So although, like the movies portray the parents very passionate about the children showcasing their talent, it's not exactly us being passionate. It's about the children ensure they rehearse and they ask, is the guest coming today? Because we have something to show. So
really cool. Because when I went to meet my dadi today, I also, of course, I went with her to my bua's place, and she's got a huge, big, massive Labrador, and she's so scared of dogs. So my dadi enters and she's like, hello Simba, chalo dur raho, at least 200 meters away from me, don't come sniffing. But yeah, those forced niceties come out, especially in Indian parties and gatherings, and he's like, hello, acha, namaste, and then 10 other things.
So that's
dinner table discussions also remind me of one thing, that we often not only try and unwind by the end of the night. Of course, we have good, nice, hearty meal. Everybody just wants to sleep. Do you often, as you mentioned, you've got a very cool regime or a routine rather, where you guys are giving speeches and you're just having all these fun activities for the night? Do you tune into any kind of music? Are there any favorite ghazal picks for the night?
Now that you say that, at over breakfast last week, we had a guest who had written a book, and in his book, there was multiple references to R.D. Burman. So I think See, I've never been this old Bollywood fan as such. However, that was an introduction to me of the R.D. Burman songs. I enjoyed
Right.
those. And then if you ask me the kind of music I listen to, I really like the ones, I think, which are emotionally reverberating, which, all those typical Bollywood numbers, I think I'm okay with them. I enjoy them.
Yeah.
No other
I
than
recently got a tiny little karma. I don't know if it's kept in my room, but it's got those pre-fed, pre-recorded songs, all Kishore Kumar, Rafida, Lata Mangeshkar, all the legends. And I absolutely love it. Like, I take it everywhere with me. Although it was a gift for my dad because it was his big birthday celebration and everything. He got promoted recently, he got his new stripes. So he got a new gift and I stole it from him. Because I feel like every family needs one rich child or like a rich female daughter rather. Because I feel like rich girls who are born in very middle class families, they act very rich. And there are so many wants and needs. And this is exactly where all of this comes from. All these chataka colors, all I'm kidding you. Like, I'm not even going to kid you. I do not wear this. It's a one-time show thing. I never wear this. It's come out of my wardrobe after years. Thanks to God.
I think for the dinner party theme, there couldn't be anything better. We needed the sparkle that you brought.
Truly. And so have you. You've added, just again, a char chand laga diya aapne, for sure. Roubles Academy here has clearly lit up the show for the night. We'll dive into it. I want to hear from you. I want to get into the topic, just understand, dissect it, just tod marod ke understand from you that why murder mysteries? What was the hook factor for you? Maybe also explain to our audience, given that you're such a voracious reader, we try to break this down in the very beginning. From the get-go, we do understand that you are an avid reader. That is also one of the reasons why we connect so well, because, we used to talk about this. We talk about communities and platforms where we need enough readers. So why murder mysteries out of all the damn genres in the world? Very frank first question.
So I think when you said I as a reader, so over breakfast, the book club I represent, it came out of the need to share what I read, because I read
Right.
almost a book in a week. Now, when you read with that much intensity and regularity, you really need an outpour. You need a place where you can share what you've read. So murder mystery, I wouldn't say that has been what I read particularly,
Right.
but I do explore authors of different genres. So Agatha Christie was one of the, so I think I would confess that the people who struggle, who really aspire to become the book lovers, but they do not, or who are scared of really reading a book, starting with a mystery book or a murder mystery for that matter is a wonderful beginning. Because I remember that Sidney, Sheldon during my school days, or even the regular Sherlock Holmes, the celebrated conventional detectives. Then also I would, then a lot of names I can take, but I remember that Sidney Sheldon told me what a page turner is. He told me how the books, they don't have to be all about rich emotional complications. They could simply be actions back to back. So I think one of the very important messages I would like to pass on today is those who really want to get this hook of reading. They want to fall in love with this entire activity of reading, or they imagine themselves as enjoying books. Starting a mystery book could be a wonderful idea. I have a book here by Agatha Christie. I completed it in 2 days. It's a 300-page book. And why I could complete it in 2 days is not because I'm a fast reader. Murder mysteries or mystery books, they're written in that way that they're absolute shorter and crisper. The sentences absolutely hop. You one sentence, the next sentence, the verbs are action-based. And you don't need a lot of involvement in terms of intellect. All you have to imagine is what all is happening. And the authors, they really do a wonderful job. So that's what my reason of reading these mysteries would be.
Right, fair enough. In fact, the recommendation for the night could also be one of the Agatha Christie reads, or perhaps the one that you're holding right in your hand. So for the people who tune in, very often what I do, yes, hold it up for the camera. The people take snapshots. I don't think people are doing that. I think they got it. I'm over exaggerating. So very often I just like recommending books or anything that I've lately been reading. And given that the entire idea that I started the podcast with or at least how I came up with it was just because I feel like we read something, we make notes, we journal, we have it somewhere in they're safe keeps for us, right? You build a library out of it. If you have the very fortune sometimes and privilege, very often people can't build libraries because people who are on the go or have to chuck books, very often they can't, or don't have enough storage space. We had this discussion in the very first stream that I had, and I wanted to ask you a similar question. Given that there's so many kids that you interact with, so many children who are in an age and stage where they can grasp so many concepts, new knowledge, new books, get their hands on it. How do you provide for something like this? And what is your take on digital access? How accessible is accessible nowadays? When we say Zoom can so easily kick us out of meetings, like just the very technical glitch, the fault that we had at the very beginning. Imagine if we leave it to technology. Do you think our books are actually being stored somewhere? Like, are Kindles actually good? Or are we just wasting our time, like by throwing away our paperbacks?
Right. So, when I was young, I have read a lot of comics as well. So I was the Archie guy or the Tinkle.
Can you take a few names? Like, we'd like to know what were the ones.
It all started with the Hindi comics. We would go for a train ride to Haridwar or things like that. And then we would buy the Billus, the Pinky, and then we had the Chacha Chaudhary. So it started like that. And actually, it was Bobby, but because there was this matra of Hindi on the burr that made it sound like a Bobby. So that is how it started. And then we had, so I remember I went in one of the parties with my parents, and I overheard two convent-educated women talking about Archies, and I didn't know what Archie is. So I questioned my mother. She said that these are some English novels which convent students study. So I was impressed. I thought, okay, I want to read that too. So I remember there were no bookshops which sold Archie. So I went to the railway station, and thankfully they did not ask for a platform ticket. And I went with my driver. I got this huge packet of Archie comics. And now we even have a Shah Rukh Khan's daughter doing a role in an Archie. I think it's called Archie. The film is called Archie.
Really? Oh, yeah. Is this the Netflix one that's going to come out?
I'm not sure. I just saw that all of a sudden Archie is back in trend. So when you go to Crossroad or bookstore, you see huge piles of Archie. So why I said about comics, because when I was reading a lot of comics, a lot of people would say that reading comics is easy because they have illustrations and caricatures. However, over time, I felt that any kind of reading in the growing phases is good reading, right? Any reading that makes you pause for a while, that makes you give your attention and focus, whether it is an illustrated book, a picture book. So I've been a strong admirer of picture books for the kindergartners up till grade 3 and 4. Post that, I have been okay when the children talk about audiobooks because you require a different kind of patience to listen to an audiobook. They all demand a different set of skill. And also, if I talk about novels and books, there was a time when those who were reading books, they were considered, like we look at the ones who see a lot of TV. We say that, oh, you're wasting your time. The book readers once. So I wouldn't negate Kindle. I too have it. But I won't say the tangibility of a paper, the smell of a paper, the emotional connect. Now look at the color of this Agatha Christie book. The shade, this texture, this feeling. It's absolutely irreplaceable. Kindle can't do that. They can
never.
They can't. And then once you've touched a paper, you have, there's a beautiful word for it, palimpsest. Palimpsest is that, something which has already been written on a paper. And when you rub it even, you have the traces. So the palimpsest of your fingers, the emotional connect with the paper turner and the pleasure of turning the pages. I don't think digital thing can replace this experience. They could award a different experience, but not as a substitute. Could be complementary and supplementary, but I don't think it would be a replacement.
Fair enough. On that note, there's a small little chat in the chat box, and somebody's written, how do you become a fast comprehension reader? Perhaps that's how he's framed it. But I think what I'd also like to know from you is that at the same time as you picking up words real quick, finishing books very quickly, how are you also ensuring that there is 100% accurate comprehension of the text? It's not just for the flipping of pages. mysteries?
Right. No, I think that varies. So this Sunday, the 9 a.m. over breakfast, we have a PhD lawyer coming up. So I'm reading a book on legal literacy. That's called The Basics of Indian Law. That's what I'm reading. Now, I
Right.
can't expect myself to read it fast because I've got no legal background, except
Fair
for the
enough.
fact that I've gone through the NCRT books till grade 12 very
Yeah.
thoroughly. I do understand political science, but I don't have a lawyer's knowledge, right?
Right.
So I always believe that reading is like a quest. You need to know what you're looking for. For since somebody who questioned, he spoke the word comprehension. Uh,
Yeah. You did.
that's what they're looking for. Comprehensions have their questions underneath. And the first rule of solving any comprehension is you need to read the question first, and then you're supposed to look for the answer in a paragraph. So,
Right.
likewise, people like me, or when you're reading a murder mystery, when you know the plot and you want to know now who the murderer is, you don't want to pause and kind of savor the in-betweeners. You really want to go and jump off the ladder. You want to reach out to the final bits of the book. So the
Right.
pacing up, the selective reading, the skimming, scanning, as it is said in comprehension, it happens only if you know what your quest is, what you're looking for. So
Fair enough. Because somebody has written this in the sorry, if you can also repeat the name of the book. Bindu Sarah Jacob has said it that can we please write it in the chat? So let me write it out.
this book.
Yep, that's the one.
So this is, and then there were none. And then there were none. And what I think, Tanya, maybe our listeners are really interested in knowing more about murder mysteries.
Yeah.
So post this, we can really talk about the elements because
Let's get into it.
yeah,
So one thing, I'll get into this first because I want to just say my piece, and then I'd love to hear like your perspective, all the elements, what consists of a mystery novel. Like when we call it whodunits, what does that actually mean? And is that just wordplay? Does that mean something? Let's get into that. But like one thing that I love the most about like international mysteries is just the way that they can breathe life into the characters and the tropes that we're already sort of familiar with, right? So we've all read mystery books with that one grizzled detective, and he believes that the world is working against him and he has to just fight it out. It can be Hercule Poirot, it can be Byomkesh Bakshi. It's just basically all these detectives fit into that trope that we've seen mostly in mystery novels. But what a mystery novel in which like a investigator, what I envision, who's a female, right? She's like a female attorney who's trying to struggle against the cultural expectations of her Indian community, who are like very nosy and pokey anyways. So I envisioned something like this. And then like on that note, I had one recommendation, whoever might want to take this away and have a read as well. It's called Murder at the Grand Raj Palace. It's a book by Wasim Khan. Rule for you as well. I mean, if you think that it's something that you might want to just pick up, it's very interesting. It's based in an Indian setting as well. So culturally, it's if somebody's as aware as you and I, we'd really enjoy a book like this. Imagine like, it's a mystery involving it's very cool. Like it's a whole scandal that's being investigated. So it's very nice.
it sounds interesting. I would love to read that.
So on that note, what was the most recent, firstly, mystery novel apart from the Agatha Christie reads? Because I feel like Agatha Christie goes back to an era. She remains like the gold standard. Like our parents have read her, we've read her,
Right.
our seniors have. What
Absolutely.
else?
So, see, I think the first introduction of mystery books to me was the Hardy Boys and the
Oh
Nancy,
yes.
right? And the Famous Five. I still remember when I read the Famous Five, The Treasure Island by Enid Blyton.
Oh yes.
I loved it. The very essence of the book that children have a private island all to themselves and how they can really sail on a boat and reach there. And they make that island their play area. And then it is kind of attacked by the robbers and the pirates and how the children come out. So the daring quality of children and the adventure, the streak of mystery, that was my first encounter with the mystery book. Then I grew up, I read a lot of those Hardy Boys, and then I even heard JK Rowling of Harry Potter confessing that she fell in love while reading mystery books. And Harry Potter was in a way that mystery, the mystery touch of the book is what makes it so interesting, because the curiosity right from the first page of how the school is going to be, who the villain is going to be, how Harry's going to come out of that. So I think there is no book without a mystery, right? But when we really put up a murder mystery or something like Agatha Christie specializes in, so she was one of those authors who was writing one book every year. So as people are voracious readers, she was avid writers. She was
Yeah.
doing prolific stuff. And her writing pace is swift. The sentences are shorter. So if somebody is reading Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes, he
Right.
would discover that the sentences are complex and dense. You have to decode the sentences, and at times a sentence goes as long as a paragraph. So murder mystery of Agatha Christie's, they are shorter, crisper, action
Easier.
work, more animated with their adjectives.
Oh, definitely.
And once she describes the character with the name and the adjective, she swaps the references. So in the next paragraph, she might call the character from the adjective. So let's say like a fatty man. So she might not call him Mr. something. She might call him the plump man or the stout man, or because that's how murder mysteries, we imagine the scene, the silhouettes, the shadows. That's where the essence lies.
Fair enough. I have the same sort of understanding of simpler words, of simpler action verbs or adverbs that they call it now. It's the same as reading, like you rightly mentioned Harry Potter. He was, I think, everybody's first love growing up, especially when you understand magical realism. The first time you pick up a fiction novel, she's really the one who paints that picture for us. JK Rowling does. But then at the same time, when you progress a little as a reader, if somebody is in that intermediate stage of reading, what other mystery recs should one pick up? Should one altogether just read them because they're like, fun to read and they're like easy? Or should one actually get some meat out of a mystery novel? Like, should you take it seriously? Should you design your own murder mystery plot someday?
Right. So for those who really look for writing as a career, I think reading mystery books is also a wonderful exercise, because the way they are constructed and the way they are planned. For instance, the book which I have here, and Then There Were None, Agatha Christie calls it one of the most difficult books she ever wrote. And she has,
Really?
yeah, this is the most popular book of Agatha Christie. And it is one of the most difficult, she says. She says that the maximum contentment I found was in writing this very book. And she spent months on working on the plot, and she couldn't really find who the murderer should be. So that whodunit is a big mystery in this book. So when somebody is looking for writing as a craft, mystery books are wonderful exercises, because usually the plotting and planning of a mystery book starts from the finale, the final segment. You know the crime first, and then you concoct and fabricate other details around it. Otherwise, if you look at other novels, the ones where we tend to ramble emotional tales, we start randomly at any point and then we go on exaggerating. But in mystery novels, no, you need an entire storyboard. You need the characters right in front of you. You need the backdrop. You need to give personalities to your character, how they're going to talk, what are their preferences. Then you need to also put parallel their emotional state, their actions, and their physical moves as well. Because as a reader, you are visualizing the character with as much vividity as the author penned it. You can see the character, you know its mental state, and you also know where he's heading to. And on top of it, once you're doing it all, you also need to be selective, like a jigsaw puzzle, what piece you want to spill in a chapter. So reading a mystery book, I would say, is a wonderful exercise in realizing the wonders of writing as a craft.
That is absolutely taken. Like, absolutely a very, very valid point that you brought up. Because there are a few chat comments. I'm going to take 2-3 seconds to talk about those. So Diljit has asked you a question, I think. He's in fact, it's like a hashtag rather. Like, मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा इन्होंने लिखा, he's written Poirot versus Sherlock हो जाए. And he's given us this little food for thought, and mujhe bada acha laga he's written it. And Diljit is actually very, very loyal. He keeps turning up for a lot of streams, and we really love his presence. Bindu has also mentioned something that she's not really read Agatha Christie books as much, but she will surely read your recommendation. So we're very glad that we could have you talk about it. And she's also written, she's a big fan of Sidney Sheldon books. So during college days, she's picked up some of them. I remember you talked about Sidney Sheldon. Is there like a specific novel that of his, or any like one famous whodunit that you like?
Right. So see, just to introduce one more element about myself, I was in grade 7 when I had a book written, and it got printed, not exactly published.
Mhm.
It's more like a Diwali gift my parents gifted to their friends. It was a 10-story book, 10 stories in a book. And that's what I wrote. So I was quite popular in my city and state as the youngest writer they know of. I remember I went for a little party somewhere, and a few years earlier to me, he questioned me that you read a lot of books, you must have read Sidney Sheldon. So Sidney Sheldon was like the new JK Rowling at that time. Everybody was talking about him. I was in school. And I felt kind of embarrassed because I hadn't read it. And Da Vinci Code was what the world was talking at that time. There were conspiracies big time on Da Vinci.
Favorite, very favorite.
And it became a trend-setting novel because the words like Illuminati and the secret societies and how they're really heading for saving Bible as a belief, and the cryptic methods and the secret way how Leonardo da Vinci or even Walt Disney were connected in some comments. I remember it was
a whole universe. He created a multiverse before we had.
And so that was my first book, I would say, that Sidney Sheldon's Da Vinci Code, which changed my this perspective on what mystery book writing or any entertaining book writing is all about. You can't ramble. You can't complicate your structure. If you ask me today,
absolutely not.
Although Agatha Christie has done wonders in writing, still I would say for today's audience, she tends to make it a little complex because we lack on patience.
Really?
Very
I thought simple on the contrary. I thought simple.
No, it's very simple in terms of the sentence structure. Right. But sometimes, I give a simple example. So when you create, see, I am a typical language coach, and I do study sentences by their logic. So if you construct a sentence in 2 parts, let's say she walked and she sat, right? Or she walked, she tripped, and she fell. Now, there are 3 verbs that I'm choosing here. Agatha Christie would maybe prefer walking down, and then she would tell where she's walking. She tripped, and finally she groped her way to sit. Now, what happens when you elongate a sentence like that, you don't want the aberrations of vocabulary at the moment you want to know who's done the murder. You want to go towards the parts which develop the story and not the character anymore. So maybe on that part, I've been technically a critic here, not a critic in that way that she's done something wrong. I'm saying times change, writing flavors change. So what she wrote then, people had no television. This book is in 1939. So a good 85-year-old book here. So when she wrote it, there was no television. People, I could imagine that they would be sitting together and reading and maybe sharing what's going to happen. The oral sharing part was much more important.
More than actually tuning into like TV.
And today we are in the visual culture. So we really want only those elements to be emphasized, which progress the story and doesn't really show the flair of the writer prominently. We could realize and appreciate the flair later, but not in the course of our reading, especially for mystery books. So I think...
just quickly, like a Sidney Sheldon rec too, because I feel like we wanted to tell her, Bindu would ask the question.
Yeah, the Da Vinci Code. Da Vinci Code. Simple. Angels and Demons I've read, but then when you've read Da Vinci Code, you don't need to. Inferno I've read, the same thing.
But like, I get like how Dan Brown as an author is trying to create that like verse, like a multiverse that we call it, with all these other things that we see nowadays. I feel like even in Bollywood, I'm digressing completely, but I recently saw this movie, the one with Shah Rukh Khan in it, Pathaan, and I realized there are so many callbacks. You got a tiger callback, you got a 2-3, no, not 2-3, a good enough fat cameo of 20-30 minutes. Salman Khan coming, showing his muscles, not tearing his shirt off for the first time. But there were references to Tiger from, no, not Tiger, this character of war, Hrithik Roshan. I don't know how much do you follow all these Bollywood movies, but I feel like gradually with cinema, we're all inching towards creating multiverses. Avengers did it. We saw the same happening with cinematic characters, even here, like Rohit Shetty's universe. We're talking about a cop universe per se. And we're talking, do you see something potential happening with mysteries? Because Drishyam is one movie I really like. And I feel like we're really picking up on culture, on movies from the South. They're getting a lot of traction. A lot of people are talking about it. One person who I really like is Fahad Fasil. He is a brilliant actor. He's acted in some of the best mystery watches that I've liked on screen, like thrillers, like absolutely thrillers that you would expect to have you stunned and keep your eyes open all night. So Joji is one. Irul is another one that I really like. Are there chances of this multiverse for mystery novels happening soon? And if the same,
I've just got a text by my wife. She says Da Vinci Code is by Dan Brown. Did I say Sidney Sheldon?
Yeah, Sidney Sheldon. We got back to
I think my mistake there. That Dan Brown. So she was asking for Sidney Sheldon.
Yeah, she was.
Okay.
Usha ji was.
Sidney Sheldon. Yes, I get it. So Sidney Sheldon, I think my recommendation for that would be Master of the Game. Master of the Game is a wonderful book, and I think it's one of the most celebrated Sidney Sheldon's books because it really brings up the cleverness of running big time businesses, and that also how even a mother can play games with the son for the sake of business. So when I read Master of the Game for the first time, that was a big eye opener. Like for me, okay, so that's what happens in the world. So that was one part. And then when you spoke about the multiverse. So for multiverse, Tanya, if you really ask, I would say that it really depends upon the taste. People like me, we touch an author. We try to sense his level of his skill, his craftsmanship, and then we move to the next author. Right? So entertainment as such is not what I go for a movie. So when I went for Pathaan, to be very honest, I wanted to sleep. Or I wanted to leave the theater.
Same.
Although I know that they have been great fan following and people really talk about it. Yeah. So for me, see, neither I'm a parent of two. So neither those teenage bodies impress me. Even if Shah Rukh Khan is like a good 50, 60-year-old man showing off that physique. So neither I'm of that category. The fashion without a purpose is again something, is not my school of thought. Then action without a need. Then again, action without a need is again something I am not interested in. And then the humor. I believe that the originality in Bollywood, again, something controversial, but I think that's where the interesting conversations lie anyway, if you really share something you strongly feel about. So for that reason, I would say that the originality of humor is something we miss out. So when they say that there are callbacks, so there is Salman Khan coming from his another movie character.
Yeah.
So I think those were, perhaps they didn't even know what multiverse and callbacks are. What they were doing was simply to entertain the mass audience on a cultural level. The movies which had been celebrated as successful were being showcased in snippets once again. So I wouldn't say that that's original. And when we talk about Avengers and all that, or the Hobbit and other movies of the
Harry Potter too. For that
Harry Potter. So that's where the originality somewhere is. Nothing is 100% original. You always pick up a streak of inspiration from one or the other thing. However, they introduce a concept, and introducing a concept and building up something around it deserves a bigger applause than simply following a trend and recreating something which has been done already, right? So for that reason, I think, yes, metaverse is interesting. For mystery novels, metaverse, books would never become, I believe, as popular as visual media. Books would always remain, I feel, as a book reader, because you need the intellectual labor for it, right? You can't simply choose, okay, I'm very tired, which book should I read? You have to be crazy book lover for it, somebody like us.
Yeah, have that hunger.
Yeah. So like, oh, it's a Sunday, I'm going to read a book. Or I'm going for a holiday, I'm going to read a book. So for that, that's how we think. Oh, it's a long flight, I'm going to read a book. 90% of the people would be, oh, it's an off day, I'm going to binge watch Netflix. So for a mystery novel, I don't see that happening. However, for mystery movies, maybe like your Chitra talkies, I think would be happy here. They have a larger appeal for the audience
For sure.
than over breakfast can ever have.
In fact, there's one message that I'm going to read real quick. Abhishek has written that he thinks that Sidney Sheldon got his breakthrough with the novel The Other Side of the Midnight. मैंने पढ़ी नहीं है. Abhishek, definitely write it in the chat. What do you think of it?
No, so
I want to pick up. Yeah.
The Other Side of Midnight is his autobiography, if I'm correct.
Oh, okay. I had no idea.
Yeah, so he wrote it way later, and he actually, I think I'm right, but I'm not going to authorize what I'm saying here. So likewise, there was the Midnight, maybe the book, something like that. There was another Midnight book that made him really popular. But why I named Master of the Game, that has even sequels now, that became really popular. And Master of the Game introduces 4 generations of a business empire, and how it began from an adventure in this almost dying and starvation stage to the people who were politically influential.
Right.
And the moves and the collaborations they did cleverly, and how over time their business became institutionalized, and more than love for the work, it became a game of being socially and culturally answerable and accountable. So I think it was a mighty book, Master of the Game.
Abhishek has definitely found a pal in you. I feel like he'd be DMing you just for everybody to know that we've got Rouble's Instagram on the description of the YouTube video. So feel free to throw in your recommendations to him, because I'm sure, being a language expert, like he said, that it's the craftsmanship that language experts or readers actually get into. Like after a point, it's not plain simple entertainment for us anymore. I'm probably including myself in that league as you, and that's why I said us. But when I say us, I really mean you, because you were the one who's doing it. I had one book here, and I wanted to, since we're coming to the near end of, just coming to what, almost an hour of us speaking to each other, and it's delightful. Like time ka pata nahi chalta. Like I always say that about you. We have such free-flowing conversations. It's always so bona fide. But at the same time, I wanted to show everybody this book real quick. Am I holding it up correctly? I hope you guys can see
this incident of the dog in the nighttime. Right?
Have you read this?
No. Who's the author?
So the author of this book is Mark Haddon, and it's very interesting because it's Christopher Boone's investigation. It's again a investigation-based, a very A to Z mystery sort of novel, but it gets him to reveal and uncover a lot of family secrets. So I like family dramas. I like family mystery dramas because you can never pinpoint. Because especially if it's, I want to, on that very quick note, I just had this fleeting thought and I want to talk about it. Konkana Sen Sharma has directed this movie with Vikrant Masi in it and Kalki and all these fine actors that we have. I don't know if in the chat, if you guys can remind me what this movie is. I'm going to quickly look it up on the net, but it's amazing, Rouble. Like I urge that you check it out. Wait, let me also see. It's Konkana. Have you, by any chance, do you have an idea of what I'm talking about? It's a family murder mystery.
So I only know what Konkana Sen. I barely watch television, to be honest.
It's called Death in the Gunj. Sorry, it's called Death in the Gunj. And have you seen it by any chance?
No.
Oh, you would love it. Oh, do not watch it on a dark day. Watch it when you are absolutely in check of your emotions, because it can get to you. It is one such novel. And similar, it's called Death in the Gunj.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah. Very cool. It's also a recommendation for whoever's watching. I really liked it, enjoyed it. It's fantastic piece of work. She's really fleshed out characters and family dramas, and that entire concept of that Indian, the thing that I talked about earlier as well, that in an Indian community that's very pokey and they just really want to know what's going on in your life. Like it really sets apart a standard for all our nosy neighbors that, hey, this is what can happen. So please don't ask your beta what do you want to do in life, what's next. Don't ask. Just mind your business. Because in this very book as well, the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime, Christopher, he finds the body of a dog. And then there's this entire very offbeat sort of mystery, which he tries to unravel around it. And it's one of the very few mystery novels that I've seen to have a fantastic book cover. Like the animation on here doesn't at all give you a peek into what's happening in the book. It's completely different. Like even the title is very interesting. It's such a huge, big title. And I thought, kuch to dog related hoga, dog mar gaya hoga. But turns out, bilkuli, it was completely an eye opener, like we talked about earlier as well. He has mentioned another thing, Abhishek, in the chat. Did you have a look?
No, I think you'll have to read it for me.
So he's written that there is now editing happening to remove things which are offensive, such as Roald Dahl, and I'll take your opinion on that as well. Similarly, how would you respond to it if somebody wants to modernize Agatha Christie's appeal to the current readers? What a brilliantly crafted question.
So he says, what changes? I don't think it should be fiddled with. And the reason, see, that's where the flavor of Agatha Christie lies. She's talking about a time where you could be stuck in an island because there was no phone, where you were solely dependent upon the relations which were tangible and physically accessible, and where the community bond was there. So Agatha is what she is. Firstly, she's a woman writing mystery books. That's what the first thing that makes her she. Secondly, she really worked on the storytelling and not just the language. So that was the number 2 thing. Number 3 things is, so she puts up a common backdrop and there are multiple characters and they spill different information on a backdrop, which could be spilled either the character thought and something comes up, or the character said and something comes up. So you have to pick those jigsaw puzzles and then you have to create it all together as a single thing. If today we think of recreating something like that, it shouldn't be. The signature itself, I believe, on Agatha's will have to be.
Okay, one defense argument, one quick argument. He's used the word modernize rather than recreate. What's your take now? When we say modernize, do you think if I replaced Hercule Poirot with like Spider-Man, or like give him a man wala, like, we've got Batman, we've got Hulk, we've got these set masculine characters. If you were to do the same and give him a Superman cape and make Hercule Poirot that, would it change? Would that multiverse aspect come in here? Just a thought.
Very interesting. I think the way you imagine that how it could be a modern Hercule Poirot.
Right? Like a new guy. He's like AI. He's got AI. He's just like sitting with one hacker cap in one cafe.
Yeah, but I think that would, then you know what would happen? Then he would not be able to use his soul skills on his own. He'll have to depend upon hackers and the digital marketeers. So the fact that he's all by himself is what makes him different and powerful. And even if we see Sherlock Holmes, now what made him that was because there was Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes. That's it. However, today, I think more than our independent skill set as modern people, what we depend upon is, who do you know? Do you know anybody who can do this for you? Do you know somebody who can incomplete this skill for you? So that's how often we guys are maneuvering in our day-to-day lives. However, Hercule Poirot or Sherlock Holmes are all by themselves, right? So I think modernizing them would simply mean making them another Pathan movie.
Which will be trash, guys. Just to let you know, 2 people who discuss fine things in life will not be recommending Pathan. We're sorry to hurt your Shah Rukh Khan loving ego. We're sorry. But wanted to have one very free-flowing discussion point or a talking point, the last one for the night, and then, we can both rest our wine bottles back in the fridge because neither of these are open. These were here for show, letting all the kids know on the stream once again. But I feel like it's very unfair to sort of deny the fact that most of the Indian thriller or Indian mystery novels are pulp. They're all pulp. Like there's so much pulp, and they're fiction, obviously. Most of them, for that matter, like Anuja Chauhan, I feel like after a point, or Vivek Shonbag, or maybe you can take a few more names and the ones that you like. Let's make this easy. Let's make it two-part. Firstly, any Indian authors that you recommend. But at the same time, I feel like these authors in India have brought a revolution in the genre. Definitely. It's very different from what Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was doing, what we talked about Agatha Christie doing, because you need the cultural context. You need the adaptability. That's how we started in the very, very beginning of the stream. That yes, adaptability, readers have adaptability, fight or flight. In your opinion, do you think Indian, I don't know why I keep using the word multiverse, but do you think it's coming up in some sense? Are we also at the same league? And which are your favorite Indian mystery recs for the night?
To speak of Indian mystery, I think I'll have to depend upon you more.
All right.
So you'll have to
So
tell me.
one was definitely Anuja Chauhan, because I said, although I find her to sort of have had a very journey now, where I personally just find her to talk about like the flashier aspects of modern Indian society. She talks about certain sections of society as well. It's a nice sarcastic commentary at some point. It's fleshed out, the caustic tone of how we see Western or Southern Delhi aunties like going to all these parties and wearing things like these, very matka chatka. So there's one book that I might recommend to you along the similar lines, which talks about these facades that we have. And I remember for one of our over breakfast conversations, we had this discussion. It's Club You to Death by Anuja Chauhan. I liked her book. It was all right. But over a period of time, like see how we talked about Roald Dahl now being the front face of controversy. Not a lot of things have timeless appeals. Not every book has a timeless appeal. Sometimes it suits a generation or it suits a certain reading category, but that doesn't stay. So in that context, do you think Indian novels are here to make it? Or do you think mystery novels that we've had all along, all these years, they're the only ones here to sort
No,
of break?
I believe absolutely, because this
Yeah.
is a high time when Indians have discovered a sense of pride in their distinct identity and their individuality. So even if they at times take inspiration from other countries, they really chisel and sculpt the context to suit their needs and their audience.
Yeah.
So I'm absolutely optimistic that the time is ripe, and we
Right.
are going to get a lot of wonderful Indian authors who are going to experiment, right? And also, I believe now a little picture, as you can see, of mine at the back on a white board. So
Yeah.
that's by one of my children. And when he drew that, it's something
Yeah.
very different as well. So in the pocket, he has made two children. I don't know if it's visible or not. So that's
Yeah.
and my two children. My children are in my pocket.
Like a
So
Joey and in the kangaroo's
yeah,
pouch.
so I believe that now, the way modern parents in any country, primarily India, I
Yeah.
would say, they bring up, they inspire their children to be original, to be innovative, to
Right.
challenge the conventions. And so if we go by the generation that my kids are going to be,
Hmm.
uh, and their counterparts, they are certainly going to bring a revolution when it comes to creating a metaverse or at least reforming mystery.
For sure, especially because we're talking in an Indian context, both of us are. I think we might as well want to see that upcoming breakthrough of Indian writers. Somebody's also mentioned this in the chat that have you read Kanpur Khufia Private Limited? If not, he said that it's a very fun read and it's a nice blend of humor, mystery. It's by this author Richa S. Mukherjee. But very interesting. Diljit has given this recommendation, so whoever's watching should definitely pick this up, apart from the Anuja Chauhan novel that I really did not sell very well 2 minutes ago. There's one timeless author, because we talked about appeals and timeless appeals, Satyajit Ray. Satyajit Ray, I've personally found fantastic novels that he's written. Illustrations are very simple. They reflect a simpler time. So that very character that he created, Adventures of Feluda, I still remember that it's one of the ones that I really want to, like that Bengali twist to it that still is there. Like how do I like that Watson Sherlock duo, right? That banter still remains, and he's also done so well with all the films that we've seen, right? Satyajit Ray has been such a amazing filmmaker. So no matter what he writes, what he portrays on screen, it's just like you are getting a peep into a genius's mind. So for me, he's also another author I'd like to recommend. He's literally given a lot of competition to Holmes and Watson.
Well, I think you should script out all these names for
For
others,
sure.
others like me who are really going to buy soon after this session.
Yeah, for sure. So what we can do by the end of the night is we'll give this a little structure as well. Usually like timestamps come up within 2 or 3 business days. we keep it as structured as possible. But once timestamps go out, it's just easier for people to navigate back to what we said, any recommendations we had. So I always sort of ensure that's gone out. Apart from that, maybe what we could do is circulate a list, over breakfast.
I think that would really be helpful.
That'll be nice. So next Sunday, maybe you guys can also tune in and we can share links. That'll be really fun. On that note, thank you. This has been absolutely delightful. Dinner party mein humne dinner nahi khaya, guys. I am very sorry. That was a clickbait. But we must acknowledge that we did cater for the alcohol for the night. So we did have that. It's still a very unopened, uncorked bottle. But at the same time, we both ensured that we were dressing the part. Rouble had to wear a white shirt, but we are more than excited to see the brown on you. And at the same time, because it would have been a very black and white combo, a very tour police, absolutely opposites of each other. But it was so fun, so much fun. Seriously, I absolutely have a good time every time. We've spoken for the longest time. I remember we've talking about my deepest interests in just lovely, the very lovely Jane Austen. Like we've talked about her so often, her reads. We can take this forward another time. We would love to keep hearing from people, send your recommendations for mystery novels or for that matter, another dinner party. And what else can we do for this dinner party? And perhaps if you were ever in Delhi, that'll be nice to have a physical dinner party where we are actually munching on some foods at the time. I provide. If there are any parting notes, I'd love to hear from you, and then we can call it a night for sure.
So my simple message representing Over Breakfast is join our community, Over Breakfast, be a part of it. We meet every Sunday, 9 a.m. We try to make it engaging and interesting, and do read your 50 pages a day. Try to use it as a skill, which I believe can really change lives. So that's it.
That's a very nice takeaway. Lots of thank yous coming in for you. And there's one person who's also mentioned that thanks for saving my Zomato money. Because I think the lalach of people just tuning into dinner party and then realizing there is no food being had. That was fun. But we will definitely have a dinner party. And I hope for audiences across the board, since we're 2 clubs sort of collaborating and having a fun discussion, we might as well want to do something in person. So that could be a very big announcement very soon. Let's plan it out really well.
Certainly.
But till then, keep reading, guys, and keep sharing your recommendations with us. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me on Tanya Talkies. Good night.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing